She started her day early, as she always did. The sun was barely touching the rooftops when she left her small apartment and stepped into the busy streets. Even in the quiet hours of the morning, the city had its rhythm. Cars honked, people hurried to work, and the aroma of fresh bread and coffee filled the air from nearby bakeries. She liked walking through the streets at this time. There was a calmness, a sense that the world was just beginning. And for a few minutes, she felt like it belonged entirely to her. Her job was simple but meaningful. She worked at a local community center, helping people who needed guidance, support, or just a friendly face. It wasn't a high-paying position, but it mattered to her. Every smile she received in return, every word of thanks, made the long hours worth it. She had always been like this, quietly devoted to helping others, never seeking attention or recognition. The community center was alive with activity when she arrived. Children laughed and ran through the hallways, volunteers prepared meals, and a few people waited for counseling sessions. She greeted everyone with a warm smile and a gentle word. Her presence had a calming effect. Even those who were anxious or upset found comfort in her voice. She moved gracefully from one task to another, organizing supplies, checking schedules, making sure everyone felt seen. He was the opposite of her in many ways. He lived in a world of luxury and influence, a place where money could solve almost any problem and appearances mattered more than intentions. The billionaire rarely stepped into spaces like the community center, preferring high-profile events or private meetings. But that morning, something had brought him their charity initiative he had sponsored. Though he intended to stay mostly in the background, he preferred observing from a distance, keeping a low profile, letting others take credit. When he first noticed her, she was arranging books on a shelf in the small library room of the center. She didn't see him at first. Her focus was complete, her movements natural, unhurried, and deliberate. There was a quiet strength in the way she worked, a dedication that didn't need to be loud or forceful. He found himself watching her for longer than he expected. It wasn't just her beauty, though she had that too, subtle and unassuming. It was something deeper in authenticity that contrasted sharply with the polished, often artificial world he was used to. She finally looked up, noticing a tall man standing near the doorway. She offered a polite smile and a nod. He returned the gesture, intrigued by the warmth in her eyes. Most people in his life were either impressed by his status or intimidated by it. She was neither. She greeted him as if he were just another person, no different from the volunteers or the children. That simple act of recognition, of treating him as an ordinary human being, left a strange, pleasant impression. The morning continued with the usual activities. But he couldn't help paying attention to her. She moved through the center, checking on people, listening attentively, offering small acts of kindness. A young boy struggled with a math problem, and she knelt beside him, patiently explaining until he understood. An elderly woman needed help carrying a box of donations, and she stepped in without hesitation. Every action was quiet but intentional. Every smile, every word, seemed to carry a depth that went unnoticed by most. But not by him. He wandered through different rooms, but his mind kept returning to her. He wondered what it would be like to know someone like her. Someone whose life was so different from his, yet seemed rich in ways he couldn't buy. He had met many women, attended countless social events, and yet none had captivated him in this way. There was no pressure, no hidden agenda, just a presence that made the space feel lighter. She, meanwhile, noticed him only occasionally. She saw him speaking quietly with the coordinator and occasionally looking in her direction. She didn't let it distract her from her work. She had learned long ago that attention could be fleeting, and recognition was not the measure of one's worth. Her focus remained on the tasks at hand and the people around her. It wasn't arrogance or indifference, it was a quiet devotion to what mattered most. Later that day, there was a small incident that drew their paths together more directly. A delivery of supplies had arrived, but the driver had left it in the wrong place, blocking the entrance to the main hall. People were trying to move it, but the boxes were heavy and awkward. She stepped forward, coordinating the volunteers, giving clear instructions, and helping lift where she could. He stepped in as well, surprising himself by wanting to assist. Together, They moved the boxes efficiently. And for a few minutes, they worked side by side in complete silence, each aware of the other's presence, but focused on the task. Afterward, she wiped her hands on her apron and smiled, saying softly, "Thank you for helping. It makes everything easier." He smiled back a little awkwardly. "I should be thanking you. You seem to have everything under control." She shrugged, humble as ever. "I just do what I can. It's not about control. It's about making things work for everyone." He found himself studying her words, the calm confidence behind them, and the sincerity that was rare in his world. There was no pretense, no performance, just a person who cared quietly but completely. That moment lingered in his mind longer than he expected. He realized that her way of being was something he had never encountered before. It was refreshing, grounding, and quietly powerful. As the day went on, he found excuses to stay nearby, watching how she interacted with others. She laughed easily with the children, encouraged the volunteers, and listened attentively to anyone who needed to be heard. She moved through her environment, not seeking attention, but naturally drawing people in with her presence. There was a rhythm to her day, a simplicity and grace that contrasted with his chaotic, structured life. He noticed small things about her that others might overlook. The way she tilted her head when she listened, the subtle patience in her gestures, the genuine interest in the stories she heard. Each action reinforced the impression he had formed early in the morning. She was remarkable in her quiet way, and he felt something stirring inside him, a curiosity and admiration he could not easily explain. By the end of the day, he realized that he had been watching her not out of obligation, not out of curiosity about the charity, but because he was drawn to her. Her quiet devotion, her authenticity, and her kindness had begun to touch something in him that had long been dormant. He had encountered many people in his life, many experiences, many forms of beauty, but none had affected him like this. As he prepared to leave, he saw her at the door. Waving gently to the children and volunteers as they departed, she noticed him, and their eyes met. For a moment, there was an unspoken connection, a mutual recognition of something rare and unexpected. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but the right words eluded him. Instead, he nodded and smiled, feeling a strange warmth that lingered long after he walked away. She watched him leave, her mind barely registering the brief encounter. Her focus returned immediately to the work that awaited her, the people who depended on her, and the tasks that mattered most. To her, life was simple help, where you can be present and do it quietly, without expectation. Yet unknowingly, she had left a profound impression on a man who had seen and experienced almost everything life had to offer. That day marked the beginning of something neither of them could predict. He returned to his world of meetings, luxury, and obligations, carrying a new thought, a new curiosity. She returned to her routines, unaware that her quiet devotion had already started to change someone's life. And as the city lights blinked on in the evening sky, their paths, so different yet connected, had begun a journey neither could foresee, a journey that would slowly draw them together in ways both unexpected and transformative. Days passed after their first encounter at the community center, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. It was unusual for him to be affected by someone so simply, without any glamour or influence. He found himself replaying her gestures, the calm confidence in her voice, the way she seemed to genuinely care for everyone around her. The memory lingered like a quiet melody, persistent and soothing. He started finding reasons to return to the center, not publicly or formally, just quietly observing, helping when needed, and sometimes pretending to be lost or seeking information. Each visit, he noticed more. The way she greeted the volunteers, checking their well-being. How she remembered names of children who came only once a week. How she handled small crises with grace and patience. He had seen many people in positions of power, many managers and leaders, but none had a presence that commanded respect without demanding it. She, on the other hand, continued her work with unwavering focus. She noticed him occasionally, but she did not let it distract her. She had grown used to people coming and going, many with self-interest, many expecting admiration or influence. She was polite, but she treated him like everyone else, as a person who mattered, without awe or hesitation. That was why her presence was so magnetic to him. There was no performance, no expectation, just authenticity. One afternoon, a little girl arrived at the center, crying quietly in a corner. She had lost a favorite toy and couldn't explain it properly. The other volunteers tried to comfort her, but the little girl clung to her sadness. She knelt beside the girl, speaking softly, listening patiently, helping her calm down. She didn't rush, didn't force a solution. She simply stayed there until the girl felt safe. He watched silently from the doorway. He had never seen someone handle a delicate moment with such natural empathy. In that instant, he realized it was not only her actions, but her heart that made her remarkable. Over time, he began to engage with her in small ways. He would offer to help with deliveries or ask questions about the center's programs, even though he already knew the answers. It gave him a reason to be near her, to share a brief conversation. Their interactions were light and casual at first, but he noticed how easy it felt to speak with her. She had a way of listening that made him feel seen, something he had rarely experienced. One day, he found himself lingering after a meeting to ask her opinion on a new initiative for the center. She listened carefully, considering his ideas, and offered suggestions that were thoughtful and practical. He was struck by her insight and clarity. She had a perspective rooted in compassion, not profit or personal gain. Her ideas focused on people, on their needs, on what would truly make a difference. He admired that. He admired her dedication, her quiet strength, and her ability to influence without dominating. As days turned into weeks, their connection grew subtly. He would notice small details, the way she tied her hair back when focused, the little laugh she shared with a child, the patience she displayed when someone made a mistake. He found himself looking forward to seeing her, to hearing her voice, even if it was just a passing greeting. It was strange to him, this growing attachment. He was used to admiration based on his wealth and success, but this was different. This was genuine, mutual, and unspoken. She, too, began to notice him more, though she would never admit it aloud. There was a quiet curiosity in her eyes whenever he appeared. She wondered what his life was like, and why he seemed genuinely interested in the center and its people. She observed him calmly, not letting her thoughts distract her work, but taking note of small gestures, the way he listened, the way he tried to help without drawing attention to himself, the rare moments when he smiled genuinely. There was a kindness in him, buried beneath the polished exterior. She recognized immediately. One evening, during a fundraising event, she found herself working alongside him more closely. They were organizing donations, setting up tables, and coordinating volunteers. It was a busy, hectic time, but somehow they worked seamlessly together. There was a silent understanding, a rhythm that developed naturally. At one point, they both reached for the same box of supplies, their hands brushing. She looked up, and he met her gaze. There was a pause, a momentary awareness of something unspoken. Then, almost instinctively, they laughed. It was light, easy, and genuine. He began to realize that her laughter was like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. It was simple, but it had the power to lift the heaviest of moods. He found himself seeking it, cherishing it, and wishing for more moments like this. And she, in her quiet way, began to notice the warmth behind his words, the subtle attentiveness, and the moments of vulnerability that peeked through his confident exterior as they spent more time together. Small acts of kindness and attention started to appear. He would bring coffee when she worked late, offer to carry heavy items, or quietly step in to help a volunteer in need. She, in turn, shared small glimpses of her world, her favorite books, her morning walks, stories of her childhood, and the little joys she found in helping others. These exchanges were not grand gestures, but simple, meaningful moments that created a bond rooted in authenticity. One rainy afternoon, as they walked side by side through the city streets, he found himself opening up about his life in a way he rarely did. He spoke about pressures, expectations, and moments of loneliness that even wealth could not ease. She listened without judgment, her eyes full of understanding. She did not offer solutions or advice. She simply listened. And in that act, he felt a profound comfort, a rare sense of being truly heard. Their friendship blossomed quietly, unnoticed by most. Others at the center saw them working together, but did not understand the depth of the connection forming. There was no rush, no dramatic confessions, just a slow unfolding of mutual respect, admiration, and care. He found himself looking forward to her presence, and she began to recognize the subtle impact he had on her life, though she remained cautious, careful not to let her feelings interfere with her purpose. Through it all, she continued her devotion to the center and its people. She did not change her approach, did not alter her routines, and did not seek recognition. Her life was simple, focused, and meaningful, and that constancy was what captivated him. It was not the wealth, the status, or the grandeur of his world that mattered, but the quiet, steadfast nature of hers. One evening, after a long day of organizing activities and assisting families, they found themselves alone in the empty center. The sun had set, and the room was bathed in soft light. They talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing naturally. He realized how easy it was to speak with her, how he could share thoughts and fears without fear of judgment. And she, in her gentle, thoughtful way, encouraged him to see life beyond the confines of wealth and ambition. By the end of part 2 of their journey, their bond had grown in ways neither could have anticipated. He had begun to value her presence, her insights, and her authenticity more than anything else in his carefully constructed world. She had come to appreciate the rare kindness and attentiveness he showed, even in small, unassuming ways. Their connection was no longer accidental or fleeting. It was a growing, undeniable force built on respect, admiration, and the quiet devotion she carried in her heart. It was in these small moments, these seemingly ordinary days, that the foundation of something extraordinary was being laid, and neither of them could yet predict the depth of the feelings that would soon emerge, the challenges they would face, or the surprising ways their lives would intertwine. But one thing was certain: the quiet devotion that had drawn him in would continue to shape the course of their story in ways both beautiful and unexpected. The bond they had begun to form was growing stronger, but life rarely allowed things to remain simple. The community center, as warm and welcoming as it was, had its challenges. Volunteers came and went, funding was unpredictable, and some visitors brought their own frustrations into the space. She handled all of this with patience and care. But even her quiet devotion was sometimes tested. One morning, a misunderstanding occurred. A wealthy donor, unaware of the center's internal dynamics, criticized a volunteer for a small mistake. The atmosphere became tense, and voices were raised. She stepped in immediately, her calm presence diffusing the situation. She spoke softly, but firmly, explaining the circumstances, reminding everyone that mistakes were human and that the focus should be on solutions, not blame. It was a delicate moment, and she handled it with grace. He watched from a distance, impressed not only by her composure, but also by the respect she commanded without needing to assert power. Her authority came from understanding and empathy, not fear or status. It was a lesson he absorbed quietly, realizing that her approach to life was something he had never experienced before. He began to understand that her strength lay in her quiet influence, and that was rare and extraordinary as days went by. Outside pressures began to affect their budding connection. The billionaire's world was full of scrutiny. Rumors of his interest in the community center reached his business circles, and some colleagues began to question his judgment. There were subtle warnings about being cautious, about keeping his personal interests separate from charitable work. He felt torn. He wanted to continue being near her, to understand her world and share small moments. But he was also aware of the scrutiny and potential complications. She noticed a change in his demeanor one afternoon. He seemed distracted, his usual calmness replaced with a hint of tension. When they worked together, he wasn't as focused on the tasks at hand. And there were moments of silence that felt different from before. She didn't ask him directly, understanding that some struggles needed time to reveal themselves. Instead, she continued her work, offering quiet support in the ways she knew best. Sometimes a simple smile, a reassuring nod, or a few words of encouragement could ease more than lengthy conversations. One day, a local journalist arrived at the center to cover a story about the charity initiative. While most of the attention was on him, she worked in the background, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She moved with the same grace and patience, unnoticed by the cameras, but essential to the center's functioning. During a brief moment, he caught her looking at him with a small, knowing smile. It was not one of flirtation, but of understanding. She knew that his world demanded attention, but she also reminded him silently of the simpler, more meaningful side of life. Despite the external pressures, they continued to find moments together. A brief walk in the garden, a shared laugh over a minor mishap, or a quiet conversation while organizing supplies. These moments became precious, a reminder that there was life outside expectations, life that was genuine and heartfelt. He began to realize that she brought balance to his world. Where everything in his life was fast-paced and often transactional, she introduced patience, empathy, and a quiet strength that made him reflect on his priorities. However, the growing connection was not without challenges. Some volunteers noticed his frequent presence and whispered about the reasons. She overheard snippets of conversations, but did not react outwardly. She had learned to navigate attention and speculation without letting it disrupt her focus. What mattered to her was the work and the people she served, not rumors or opinions. Her calm acceptance of these moments only deepened his admiration for her. One afternoon, a minor crisis erupted when a planned community event faced a sudden cancellation from a key supplier. Volunteers panicked, unsure how to proceed. She took charge without hesitation, delegating tasks, calming anxious participants, and brainstorming solutions. He joined in, but it was clear that she was the one guiding the process. Watching her, he understood that leadership did not always come from authority or wealth. It came from presence, competence, and care. After the event was stabilized, he found a quiet moment to speak with her. "You make it look effortless," he said, genuinely impressed. "I've never seen anyone handle so many things with such calm." She smiled, a little tired, but composed. "It's not effortless. It's just what needs to be done. People rely on each other, and I rely on them. We all do our part," he nodded, realizing that her humility was part of her strength. She did not seek praise or recognition, yet she influenced everyone around her profoundly. He felt both admiration and a growing emotional pull, the kind that was quiet but insistent. As weeks passed, he began to see her devotion in even more subtle ways. She remembered personal details about the volunteers and visitors, offered support when no one else noticed, and never asked for acknowledgement. Her actions were small, almost invisible, yet they carried weight. He realized that in her world, impact did not come from headlines or accolades. It came from consistency, care, and the willingness to be present. During a particularly challenging week, when several families needed extra assistance, she worked late hours, ensuring that every need was met. He stayed to help, but mostly to observe and learn from her approach. He noticed how she never showed frustration outwardly, how she managed exhaustion with grace, and how she maintained a sense of compassion even when resources were stretched thin. Each act reinforced the realization that her quiet devotion was a force more powerful than he had anticipated. One evening, as they were leaving the center, a volunteer thanked her for her guidance and patience. She responded softly, acknowledging the gratitude, but redirecting praise to the team. He walked beside her, silent for a moment, reflecting on everything he had witnessed. He had never encountered someone whose influence was so profound yet so understated. Her presence had begun to change the way he viewed his own life, his own priorities, and even his own capacity for empathy. He began to take small steps to connect with her beyond the center. He would leave handwritten notes of encouragement, offer small gestures of support, and occasionally share thoughts or experiences from his own life. These interactions were not grand or dramatic. They were subtle, respectful, and consistent, mirroring her own approach to connection. And she, in turn, responded with the same quiet grace. Acknowledging his gestures without letting them disrupt her focus on what mattered most, one rainy evening, they found themselves trapped under an awning, waiting for the storm to pass. The city was wet and reflective lights, shimmering on the slick streets. For a few moments they stood in silence, listening to the rain. It was peaceful, a rare pause in their otherwise busy lives. He spoke softly, sharing a thought he had never voiced to anyone before. She listened attentively, not interrupting, not judging. Her presence alone provided comfort, a reminder that someone truly understood him. As the rain eased, they walked back together, the conversation flowing more naturally than ever. There was a mutual awareness now, a sense that their connection was no longer accidental or casual. Each had begun to understand the depth of the other's character. His respect and admiration had grown into something more profound, though neither yet named it. Her quiet devotion had not only drawn him closer, but had begun to shape his emotional world in ways he had not anticipated by the end of Part 3. Their relationship faced its first real test not from dramatic events or external threats, but from the subtle pressures of their worlds and the challenge of maintaining authenticity amidst attention and expectations. Yet, through every challenge, her calm, consistent presence remained, a quiet anchor in the storm. And he, slowly but surely, began to recognize that her influence was not fleeting, it was enduring, and it was changing him in ways he could no longer ignore. The foundation for something extraordinary had been laid. Their bond, built on mutual respect, shared moments, and quiet devotion, was growing stronger despite obstacles. And while neither could yet predict the future, it was clear that the connection they shared was powerful, transformative, and entirely unexpected. The days grew longer as summer approached, and with them came new challenges that neither of them had expected. The community center was preparing for a large charity event that would attract significant attention from donors, journalists, and the public. She took the lead, coordinating volunteers, organizing schedules, and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. Despite her natural calm, she felt the weight of responsibility. Knowing that the success of the event would impact the center and the families who depended on it, he, of course, was present, though he tried to remain in the background. But his presence was felt more than he realized. He noticed the little details: how she spoke to the volunteers, how she ensured that everyone felt seen and appreciated, how she remained composed even when unexpected problems arose. He wanted to help, to support her, but he was careful not to overshadow her efforts. It was difficult because, in every way, he wanted to be near her, to protect and assist, and to show that he cared in the ways he knew best. A week before the event, a significant challenge arose. A key supplier canceled at the last moment, leaving crucial materials unavailable. Volunteers panicked, unsure how to proceed. She took a deep breath and quickly brainstormed alternatives, delegating tasks to each volunteer and contacting backup suppliers. She moved with a sense of purpose and calm that inspired those around her. He watched her, admiration growing with every action. There was no drama, no self-interest, just problem-solving and quiet determination. It was in moments like these that he realized how extraordinary she truly was. One evening, after a long day of preparations, they found themselves sitting on the steps outside the center, sharing a quiet moment. The city was alive with the hum of traffic, but around them, there was a rare peace. She spoke softly about the challenges of balancing her life and her dedication to helping others. He listened intently, wanting to offer comfort, but unsure how to express the depth of his growing feelings. "You handle everything so gracefully," he said finally. "I don't know how you do it without losing yourself in the chaos." She smiled, a little tired, a little wistful. "I don't always handle it perfectly. I just try to focus on what matters. The people. That's what keeps me grounded," he nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had seen power, influence, and wealth, but he had rarely seen someone so committed to others, so steadfast in their devotion without expectation. Her dedication was not about recognition. It was about care, compassion, and integrity. The day of the charity event arrived. The center was bustling with energy, and she moved among the guests, volunteers, donors, with a quiet authority that kept everything running smoothly. He stayed nearby, offering support when needed, but mostly observing, learning, and marveling at her ability to manage everything with grace. The event went off without a hitch, largely due to her tireless efforts, though she humbly directed praise to the team. He felt a deep sense of respect and admiration for her, stronger than he had anticipated. After the event, they took a moment to walk through the now empty center. The lights cast soft shadows on the walls, and there was a sense of calm after the day's excitement. He turned to her, feeling the urge to express what had been building inside him. "I don't think I've ever met anyone like you," he said. "Your dedication, your patience, the way you care for everyone. It's remarkable." She looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "I just do what I can." "It's not remarkable. It's just what's needed." He shook his head gently. "No, it is remarkable. You don't even realize the impact you have. You make people better just by being yourself, and I think I've started to realize how much I need that in my life." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, the unspoken connection between them felt heavier, more significant. She had always been cautious, aware of the differences in their worlds, yet she could not deny the warmth that his presence brought. It was a feeling that went beyond admiration or friendship. Quiet, steady pull that neither of them could ignore. The weeks following the event brought both joy and challenge. He began to open up more, sharing moments from his personal life that he had never revealed to anyone. She listened with her usual attentiveness, offering understanding without judgment. He realized that her quiet devotion created a space where vulnerability was safe, where he could be more than the persona he carried in the outside world. Then, unexpectedly, a personal crisis struck him. A business complication threatened not only his financial stability, but also his reputation. The pressure was immense, and for the first time he felt the weight of uncertainty in a way he could not manage alone. He retreated to the community center, seeking a refuge, though he did not fully understand why he needed it. She was there, as always, moving through her day with purpose, yet noticing his presence immediately. She approached him quietly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's going to be okay," she said softly. "We'll figure it out, step by step." Her calm assurance had a profound effect on him. It was not a dramatic gesture or an overbearing offer of solutions. It was simply her presence, her steady confidence, and the quiet belief that things could be managed together. He realized in that moment that her devotion was not just to the center or the people she helped, it extended to the connections she valued deeply. Together, they worked through the problem, brainstorming solutions, and contacting trusted associates. She offered practical advice, emotional support, and encouragement that kept him grounded. It was a turning point, a moment where he recognized that her influence was not fleeting. She was a constant, a stabilizing presence in a life that had been marked by unpredictability and pressure. As the crisis resolved, he felt a shift within himself. He could no longer deny the depth of his feelings. Her quiet devotion, her steadfastness, and her empathy had changed the way he viewed relationships, trust, and even his own emotional capacity. He realized that he did not want to lose this connection, and he did not want her to ever feel that her efforts were unnoticed. One evening, after a long day, they sat together in the quiet of the empty center. The city outside was alive, but inside there was a stillness that allowed them both to reflect on everything that had transpired. "I don't know how to say this," he began, his voice tentative, "but I think you've changed me, in ways I didn't even know I needed to be changed." She looked at him, her expression gentle, encouraging him to continue. "You've shown me patience, care, and strength in ways I've never experienced. And I think I'm realizing that I don't want to live without that. I don't want to imagine a life where you aren't part of it." Her eyes met his, and there was a quiet understanding that passed between them. She had always known her devotion was genuine, but hearing his acknowledgement, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, created a new depth of connection. It was no longer just admiration or subtle affection. It was the beginning of something far more significant, something neither could ignore. By the end of part 4, the foundation for a transformative bond had been solidified. Their relationship had faced challenges, external pressures, and moments of uncertainty. Yet through it all, Her quiet devotion had proven to be a force of stability, empathy, and influence. He had begun to recognize that her presence was not just comforting, but essential. And she, in turn, had seen the genuine capacity for change, vulnerability, and connection within him. The stage was set for the next phase of their journey, a moment where the depth of their feelings, the strength of their bond, and the unexpected surprises of life would converge in ways neither could have anticipated. Their story was no longer just about quiet devotion. It was about transformation, courage, and the power of genuine connection to reshape even the most guarded hearts. Life had a way of moving quickly. But for her, every day was filled with small, meaningful moments. She continued her work at the community center with the same quiet devotion that had drawn him in from the beginning. The children still laughed in the hallways, volunteers still moved about with purpose, and families still came seeking help. She moved through it all with patience and care, not noticing how much of an impact she had on those around her. He had become a constant presence in her life, not just at the center, but in the moments in between. He would check in, offer support, sometimes simply share quiet conversations that were more about connection than anything else. He had grown comfortable in ways he never thought possible, and she had begun to see the depth of his care and attentiveness. It was not flashy or dramatic. It was steady, consistent, and sincere. One day, they faced a situation that tested their connection in ways neither had expected. A sudden crisis emerged in the city, a natural disaster that affected many of the families the center supported. The community center became a hub for assistance, a place where those in need could find shelter, food, and guidance. The chaos was overwhelming, and resources were stretched thin. Volunteers were exhausted, and panic threatened to rise in those who had come for help. She moved through the center with calm determination, guiding volunteers, organizing supplies, and ensuring that every family received attention. He worked alongside her, not as a guest or observer, but as someone who was fully invested in the outcome. They coordinated seamlessly, understanding each other without needing to speak. Her quiet devotion and his willingness to step in wherever needed created a sense of order amid the chaos. During a particularly difficult moment, a mother arrived with her 2 children, scared and uncertain. They had lost their home and most of their belongings. She knelt down to speak with them, her voice soft and reassuring, helping them feel safe. He watched, feeling a deep admiration and something more profound, a recognition that her care was not performative. It was genuine, instinctive, and transformative. The way she touched lives without seeking recognition left him in awe. As the days passed, the crisis continued, demanding more from everyone. He noticed the toll it was taking on her, the exhaustion and stress that she carried silently. One evening, he gently suggested that she take a break, offering to handle some of the responsibilities. At first, she resisted, insisting that she could manage, but he persisted, gently reminding her that she could not pour from an empty cup. Reluctantly, she accepted a brief respite. As they sat together outside the center, watching the city lights flicker and the streets slowly quiet down, he spoke from the heart. "I've seen so much today, and I can't stop thinking about how incredible you are. The way you care, the way you lead, the way you give without asking for anything, it's changed how I see the world, and how I see myself." She looked at him, her expression a mixture of surprise and warmth. "I just do what I can. That's all anyone can do, really," he said, shaking his head. "It's more than that. You've made me realize that life isn't just about success or wealth. It's about people, about connection, about kindness. And I can't imagine not having you in my life." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she allowed herself to fully acknowledge the feelings that had been quietly growing inside her. She realized that his presence, his care, and his attention had become an essential part of her life. They had both changed each other, not through grand gestures, through consistency, empathy, and shared experiences. In the days that followed, their relationship deepened. They began to share more of their personal lives, hopes, and dreams. She spoke of her childhood, the struggles she had faced, and the lessons she had learned about patience and resilience. He shared stories of his own, the pressures of success, the loneliness that often accompanied wealth, and the longing for genuine connection. Each conversation strengthened their bond, creating a foundation built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. One afternoon, while organizing a new initiative at the center, he surprised her with a small, thoughtful gesture. He had arranged for additional supplies and volunteers to assist with a project she had mentioned needing help with. She was touched, not by the grandeur of the gesture, but by the thoughtfulness and attention to detail that showed he truly listened and cared as they worked together. She realized that their connection was no longer just about admiration or subtle affection. It had evolved into something deeper, something transformative. She felt seen in ways she never had before, appreciated not for what she could do for him, but for who she was. And he felt a sense of fulfillment and peace that he had never experienced, drawn to her quiet strength and unwavering devotion. A turning point came one evening when the center held a small celebration to honor the volunteers and families who had helped during the recent crisis. As the event concluded, he approached her, his expression serious yet gentle. "I need to tell you something," he said. "All this time I've been thinking about you, about us. I can't imagine my life without you. You've shown me what really matters, and I want to be with you not just here. Not just in small moments, but fully, completely." She felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of relief, happiness, and certainty. She had quietly hoped for this, but hearing it from him, witnessing the sincerity in his eyes, made it undeniable. She reached out, taking his hand, and said softly, "I feel the same. You've changed my life too, in ways I didn't expect. And yes, I want to be with you." From that moment, their relationship became official, though it was still rooted in the qualities that had brought them together: quiet devotion, mutual respect, and genuine care. They navigated the blending of their worlds carefully. She adapted to aspects of his life without losing herself, maintaining her humility and focus on meaningful work. He learned to slow down, to appreciate the simple joys, and to value emotional connection over status or success. Their love was not built on grand displays, but on shared experiences, thoughtful gestures, and consistent support. They celebrated small victories, comforted each other during setbacks, and continued to make a difference in the lives of those around them. Their bond became an inspiration to others at the center, demonstrating that genuine connection and quiet devotion could create profound impact. As months turned into years, as their relationship continued to grow, she pursued her own goals and passions alongside him, never losing her identity or sense of purpose. He supported her fully, recognizing that her strength and devotion were integral not only to the community, but to their life together. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but their foundation of mutual respect, admiration, and empathy allowed them to overcome obstacles with grace. In the quiet moments, away from the hustle of the city and the demands of their responsibilities, they would reflect on the journey that had brought them together. From a chance encounter at a community center to a bond forged through shared experiences, trust, and devotion. Their story was a testament to the power of genuine care and the transformative nature of love. In the end, what had begun as quiet devotion had grown into a partnership that was both deeply personal and profoundly meaningful. They had discovered that true connection did not require grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but simple, consistent acts of care, understanding, and support. And as they continued their journey together, they knew that the love they shared, built on authenticity and quiet devotion, would endure, shaping not only their own lives, but the lives of those they touched along the way. Through it all, they remained grounded in what mattered most: kindness, empathy, and the unwavering commitment to be present for one another. The billionaire had found something he could not have bought or planned: for true love, genuine partnership, and the quiet, steady presence of someone who devoted herself fully to the well-being of others. And she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, who valued her devotion, and who chose to stand by her side, not out of obligation, but out of heartfelt love and respect. Their story concluded not with dramatic events or grandiose moments, but with the simple, enduring reality of two people who had transformed each other's lives. It was a reminder that sometimes the quietest gestures, the smallest acts of devotion, and the most genuine connections have the power to change hearts, reshape lives, and create a love that is lasting and true. Life after their relationship became official was both challenging and beautiful. They had discovered that love was not just about moments of happiness, but also about patience, understanding, and navigating everyday struggles together. She continued her work at the community center, dedicating herself to helping those in need. While he balanced his demanding career with the quiet joys and responsibilities that came with being part of her world, their mornings began differently than before. She would wake early, prepare breakfast for herself, and occasionally for him when he joined her, make her way to the center. He, who had been accustomed to a world of fast-paced decisions and high-stakes meetings, found himself cherishing these small, ordinary moments: the aroma of fresh coffee, the warmth of a shared smile, the gentle chatter of people preparing for the day. It was a simplicity he had never valued before, but now he craved. At the center, they worked together seamlessly, though each had a unique role. She continued to lead with quiet determination, guiding volunteers, offering advice, and providing comfort to those who needed it most. He supported her in ways that complemented her efforts, arranging resources, lending hands when necessary, and quietly observing to understand how he could contribute without overshadowing her. Their teamwork became natural, built on mutual respect and understanding. One afternoon, a new challenge arose. A family arrived at the center struggling with financial and emotional hardships. The mother was weary, her children anxious and restless. She approached them gently, kneeling to meet their eyes, listening to their concerns, and offering guidance. He watched her work, struck once again by her ability to provide care without judgment. There was no rush, no desire for recognition. There was sincere effort to ease the burden of those who had come to her, seeing the impact of her actions. He felt a mixture of admiration and humility. He realized that in her world, influence was not measured by wealth or status, but by presence and empathy. He had lived a life surrounded by material abundance, but her devotion revealed a richness that he could not have purchased or commanded. It was a quiet power, profound in its simplicity. In the evenings, after the center had closed and the volunteers had left, they would often sit together, reflecting on the day. Sometimes their conversations were light and humorous, recalling small incidents or amusing anecdotes. Other times they were deeper, exploring fears, aspirations, and personal growth. Each conversation strengthened their bond, creating a connection that was both emotional and intellectual. Rooted in mutual understanding and shared experiences, one evening, she spoke about the challenges she had faced in her earlier life, the struggles that had shaped her compassion and resilience. He listened attentively, moved by her honesty and strength. He shared his own experiences, the pressures of his career, and the moments of loneliness that accompanied his success. In these moments of vulnerability, they discovered the true depth of their relationship, the comfort of knowing that they could be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. As time passed, they began to plan small projects together, initiatives aimed at improving the community center and expanding its reach. She had ideas for educational programs, health initiatives, and creative activities for children. While he used his resources and connections to make these ideas possible, it was not about grandeur or publicity. It was about impact, about making meaningful change in the lives of those they served. During one such project, a group of children had difficulty learning a new skill. She worked patiently with each child, providing encouragement and guidance. He assisted when needed, offering support but allowing her to lead. He watched her, marveling at her ability to nurture growth without imposing control, to inspire confidence without demanding attention. It was a lesson in humility and leadership, one that he absorbed eagerly. Their relationship was not without challenges. Balancing his demanding career with her ongoing commitments sometimes created tension. There were moments of frustration, when schedules conflicted, or when unexpected responsibilities arose. Yet even in these moments, their bond remained strong. They learned to communicate openly, to express their feelings without blame, and to find solutions that honored both their needs and priorities. One weekend, they decided to visit a nearby town to observe a similar community initiative. It was a simple trip, but it became an opportunity to learn, reflect, and enjoy each other's company away from the usual routines. They spent the day walking through local streets, talking to organizers, and understanding the challenges faced by different communities. Through these shared experiences, they gained perspective and inspiration, bringing new ideas and energy back to their own work. Back at the center, a new opportunity arose, a chance to collaborate with a local organization to provide additional resources for families in need. She approached the project with her usual dedication, courting volunteers and ensuring that every detail was managed effectively. He supported her efforts, providing guidance and assistance, but always respecting her leadership. Their teamwork became a model for others at the center, demonstrating how collaboration, respect, and shared vision could create meaningful outcomes. During quiet evenings at home, they reflected on the journey that had brought them together. From the first meeting at the community center to the challenges and triumphs they had faced since, they recognized how much they had changed each other's lives. He had learned patience, empathy, and the value of quiet devotion. She had experienced trust, support, and a partnership built on mutual respect. Together, they had discovered the power of love rooted in understanding, kindness, and shared purpose. One particular evening, as they watched the sun set from a small balcony overlooking the city, he spoke softly. "I never imagined life could be like this. I thought success was everything, but I've learned that what really matters is here," he said, gently touching his chest. "It's you, your devotion, and the life we've built together." She smiled, resting her hand over his. "And I've learned that it's okay to lean on someone, to share burdens and joys. Together, we're stronger, and we can make a difference in ways I couldn't have done alone." The months continued to pass with a rhythm of work, care, and shared moments. They celebrated small victories at the center, comforted each other during setbacks, and found joy in the ordinary moments of life morning coffees. Shared laughter, quiet conversations, and acts of kindness. Their love was not dramatic or flashy, but steady, enduring, and deeply transformative.